Hello. With this video, I will try to explain what is going on in El Salvador directly from the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele. If you listen to the news, there's great concern by the Vice President Kamala Harris and many other human rights watch organizations and many other publications that are seem to be very concerned about what is going on in El Salvador. Now, I'd like to give you an opportunity in plain English, or at least an opportunity to hear in plain English with some accent what is going on from the perspective of the executive office. Now, to understand a little bit more what exactly happened, the state attorney and the state prosecutor, they're the same person. They're two different people in El Salvador. They both are dedicated to defending the public interest. Some raise the defense. Some are in the defense of the state, and others investigate and accuse of crimes, any acts of any criminal acts that have been committed. These attorneys are prosecutors, and they're important actors of any country's legal system, and they do differ from one another. So the new assembly, who was democratically uh, elected, on day one they cleaned up this branch of the Supreme Court. This is how it works. There's a section called the Sala de lo Constitucional. This is a chamber of constitutionality where they deem any of the acts by the assembly and any of the acts of the president, and they judge whether or not those acts are constitutional. Okay, so that's what their job is, and they basically they hear and resolve the claims of anything that it's for regulations, processes, habeas corpus between the legislative branch and the executive branch. That's the definition. So also the judges and the state prosecutors were relieved of their post by the new assembly that by an overwhelming majority. There's the total of 84 in this assembly. There are a total of 64, and it was voted not unanimously, but a 64 out of 84 voted in favor of replacing these judges and replacing those state prosecutors. Now, that's where the concern about the constitutionality of those acts. Now, the assembly puts these judges in their posts, in their positions. They select them rather, or elect them to be on those posts, including the judge, the attorney generals, and the state prosecutor. Now, the main focus of this video is to listen to directly from the president and his opinion, or rather his perspective or his response to the international community as to how it was done and why it happened. Now, he's sitting in this room with all the representatives and ambassadors from foreign nations in El Salvador, and he's responding directly to them. Says thank you for coming here today. The excellent representatives and ambassadors from other nations, welcome. This is your home. We asked you here today, as we discussed previously about meeting many times. In this particular occasion, I'd like to discuss the response surrounding the circumstances, or the circumstances that surround the. So basically, saying that, and I think it's best if I pause and explain what he's saying. So the point of this meeting is to respond to those allegations and those condemnations from the international community. In here, he's saying that there's almost 100% of all of the representatives from other nations and ambassadors in this meeting. However, he regrets that the representative of the United States is not there today, and he feels that it doesn't allow the United States to receive the official response from the executive branch as to what acts have been done and how the judges and the prosecutors have been replaced. So you only listen. So the United States is only listening to the versions of the opposition, and even if they may be getting the wrong information, but it's important to receive both opinions, both responses, both sides of the story, both sides of the coins. There's no way of getting both versions if you're only listening to one. And it is very important it's important to get the executive branch's response to many of the accusations and many of the condemnations for acts of the assembly of the El Salvador. With the United Nations and the organizations of American states is here, and we've had a long relationship with many of you. You know the history of El Salvador. You know, you have data, you have facts. You know how many of you know exactly how El Salvador works, how our government works. And I found it very strange that there were condemnations about what happened on Saturday. Very, very strange. Because there was nothing to condemn. And I'm not saying only because and I'm not only saying this because countries have a right to govern themselves and they have autonomy. Or the basic principle of non-intervention as a principle of diplomacy. Even if there was no sovereignty, and even if the intervention was accepted, let's accept that. But there was no logic in all this, in what was being condemned. You would have done this in your own countries, whatever that we did here. He was referring right now that how he won the election in 2019 against the odds, against the same courts that blocked the certification of the party, so that to the point that he had to run for president using or being a part of another party in order for him to be able to run, because even though they had overwhelming amount of signatures, and this is something that I'm adding because I happen to know that they did have an overwhelming amount of signatures that should have allowed this party to be ratified and allowed to participate in the elections, the presidential elections of 2019. This is what he's explaining right now. We won with more than 20% in difference. The presidential election. And then one of the first things I asked is, what are we going to do with the state attorney and the prosecutor? Because those were put in there by Arena, which is one of the parties in El Salvador that have run the country for many years and decades. And he's referring to Raul Melara, because if you Google his name and Arena, the party, they're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to be not belong to any specific party in El Salvador, but he is here in this. He was a presidential candidate for Arena, and these are FMLN, which is also from the opposite party. So they're not supposed to be doing this. Almost as if he's advising a candidate. They're supposed to maintain complete impartiality and separation so that they can, if any one of these that he's associating himself with happens to commit some crime, then there are no conflict of interest. There he is behind the candidate that that ran against Bukele. So let's go back. So that's what he's saying. He's saying he wasn't criticizing. He was just when he said that about what they're going to do with the attorney general. He's not. He was complaining. When okay, what he's saying is that when those attorney generals and prosecutors were put in those positions, there was no condemnation from the international community at all. So it's not something that it's very new to El Salvador. It's not something that is there's really no any reason, which is the cause of his surprise, that people are now behaving as tearing their clothes in the international community and threatening to put sanctions to El Salvador. I'm at the same time that I'm translating, I'm adding some of the information that I have that I'm aware of, that I read up on. Okay, let's continue. And that was always being considered legitimate to do that, to replace the prosecutors by whomever is the party that it has the majority and happens to be able to run it through the assembly or the assembly in El Salvador. So his question about when he took office is what are we going to do about the state attorney? The reason his question is his intention has always been, Bukele's intention has always been to clean up house. Now, when you have a district attorney that is biased, that it comes from the party, that is not impartial, how do you get them to prosecute or to investigate crimes by his party? That's the point that he's making. So they told him, Mr. President, you will just have to put up with it, accept it. So this is when he was asking about the state attorney or of the El Salvador attorney general. I'm sorry. When he asked about the attorney general, they told him there's nothing you can do about it. It's what's done. For instance, and he goes right now and explaining how even in the United States, this is very common. Biden did not keep Trump's state attorney general. Trump didn't keep Obama's attorney general. Obama didn't keep Bush's attorney general, and that's what he's referring to right now. Obama no dejó al fiscal de Bush. Él llega y pone el de él. Trump llegó y no dejó al fiscal de Obama, llegó puso al de él. Al rato no le cayó mal, lo quitó y puso otro. Y luego vino Biden y no dejó al fiscal de Trump. Was there any condemnation when the United States did the same thing that we have done here? It would be absurd to do it. How are we going to ask Biden to keep Trump's district attorney general? It's a bit hypocritical, or is hypocritical. He's right now talking about how Obamacare, and that was his plan that he put forward with Congress. The House Whip Cantor, he presented their recommendations, the Republicans' party recommendations, and Obama at that time, when he was approached or asked why did Obama not consider a single point made by the Republicans, Obama's response was as follows. He said, "Elections have consequences, and I won." Let me play that for you. He's the House Whip.
Entonces Eric Cantor le dice a Barack Obama, ahí está en el video, lo pueden buscar en YouTube. Presidente, le dice, discúlpeme, aquí usted viene con el proyecto de ley y todas nuestras recomendaciones no están ahí. No están ninguna de nuestras recomendaciones. Le mandamos así de recomendaciones.
This is what Cantor was telling Obama, that none of our recommendations, a stack this big of recommendations, none of them were considered in your plan, in your Obamacare. This is what Obama told him.
Obama le contestó, elections have consequences, and I won. Obama le dijo, las elecciones tienen consecuencias, y yo gané. Y votaron y se aprobó la ley. Ojo, ni siquiera dijo nosotros ganamos, dijo yo gané.
Obama didn't even say we won. He said I won. That was his response to the Republican Party, and the reason for why he didn't accept any of the recommendations made by the Republicans when writing and passing Obama through Congress. So that's what we understand as democracy, correct? So I find it strange that I speak with countries where this has been done, and they keep telling us this is wrong what we're doing. We want to be like you. Of course, we're 1,000 times smaller. We're the size of Delaware. We know we're very small, and we have our limitations. But in a small, limited way, we want to be like your countries. But in order to be like you, we have to act like you and do what you do, not what you tell us to do. Otherwise, we'll never be like you. Then we're always going to be a colony or an underdeveloped country. The Constitution gives to the Assembly the right, the power, textually, to name and replace the magistrates of the constitutional hall or chamber. The Constitution doesn't allow me the same way it does. Did he say the same way he gives the United States? Let's see. Here we go. He says the Constitution of the United States allows the president to make those changes, but in El Salvador it does not. Therefore, he never made that decision. He never attempted to get the Attorney General of El Salvador removed, because it's not under one of his constitutional powers, but it is the constitutional power of the Assembly in El Salvador.
esto nos obliga a que lo haga la Asamblea Legislativa. Fíjense, dice el artículo 186.
He's reading from the, he says, Article 186, the Constitution of El Salvador.
Puede tener mis peros, pero este es nuestro marco
This is our rules of the game, essentially.
Se establece la carrera judicial. Punto. Y aparte, los magistrados de la Corte Suprema de Justicia serán elegidos por la Asamblea Legislativa para un periodo de 9 años.
All he's saying is that the members of the judges will be selected by the assembly for a period of 9 years.
Podrán ser reelegidos.
They can be reelected,
18, o 27. Y
and
se renovarán por
they can
terceras
be
partes cada 3 años. Es decir, en una situación normal, pues cada
every 3 years. They're
tercera
actually
será
renovated, renewed, or reelected for up to 9 years.
Y luego dice, podrán ser
They can
destituidos
be dismissed or
por causas específicas
for any specific reasons
establecidas por la ley.
as is established by law.
Y luego dice,
That's what the Constitution
tanto
says.
para la elección como para la destitución,
For either election or
deberá
destitution
tomarse
of the
voto
judges.
favorable de por lo menos los 2/3 de los diputados electos.
So, in order to replace judges, the assembly needs a minimum of 54 votes. This is 2/3 of the chamber of the entire assembly. In this specific case, there were 64 votes, so it was more, of course, than the minimum permitted.
Punto. Yo no veo fallas en la lógica.
Doesn't seem to be any thing wrong with the logic.
Presidente, pero ahí dice,
But it says their
por
president, somebody
causas
might say,
específicas,
specific
pero
reasons,
establecidas por la ley.
as according to the law.
Claro,
Of course,
los diputados leyeron 29 páginas
the deputies or the Congress people in El Salvador read 29 pages or 27 pages
de causas
of
específicas
specific reasons
establecidas por la ley.
why they were replacing the judges. 20.
Presidente, pero es que eso lo tiene que determinar un juez en un proceso con fiscal y defensores y con
And somebody might say, well, that needs to go through a tribunal, the removal of the judges.
defensa y tiene que
With a defense,
escucharse la parte,
you have to
los
listen to all
partes.
parts.
¿Y eso dónde dice?
Where does it say that?
Aquí no dice eso.
The Constitution doesn't say that.
Aquí dice
The Constitution says
tiene que podrán ser destituidos
they
por
can
la
be
Asamblea Legislativa
removed
por causas específicas
for any
previamente
specific reasons
establecidas por la ley,
as established by law
tanto para la elección como para la
for both the
destitución,
election
deberá tomarse con el voto
or the
favorable
dismissal of
por
those
2/3 de los
judges.
diputados electos. ¿A quién le está dando la Constitución
Who
la facultad de determinar
has the power,
cuáles
according to
son
the
las
Constitution,
causas específicas previamente establecidas por la ley?
to remove the judges for any
Asamblea
specific
Legislativa.
reasons?
Si aquí
The
dice,
assembly is right here in the
es decir,
Constitution.
la Constitución obliga a los
It
diputados
forces
a que
the
razonen su
assembly
destitución.
to provide a reasoning why they're removing the judges.
Tienen que destituirlos por
They have to
razones
remove them for
específicas
specific
previamente
reasons
establecidas por la ley.
established
Pero
by
no
law.
dice que lo tiene que determinar un juez o que tiene que
That
ser un
there's no
juicio,
judge involved. There's no
que tiene que
tribunal
ser
involved.
una especie. Aquí no dice ninguna
It doesn't say
de
any
esas
of that in our
cosas.
Constitution.
Lo que sí dice
What it does
es
say
que lo harán los diputados con 2/3 de los
that
votos
it only
favorables.
needs a minimum of
Tienen que
2/3
razonar lo que diga.
of the
Las causas
assembly.
específicas, los diputados las dieron 29
There were
páginas de
29
causas.
pages of
Y ahí
reasons,
están.
of causes, of specific reasons.
Incluso creo que están en las redes sociales.
You can find it in the internet.
¿Dónde está la violación aquí?
Where's the violation here?
¿Cómo pueden condenar algo
How can you
que es
condemn
que dice la
something
Constitución,
that's
cumplir con la
specifically
Constitución?
in our Constitution?
Porque si no la cumplía,
Because
hay gente que alegaría soberanía y todas esas cosas. Pero aquí no estamos hablando de no cumplir, aquí estamos hablando de cumplir.
we
la
have,
ley.
the Assembly has followed the
Entonces,
Constitution
Parecería que
accordingly.
les pasa lo que le pasa al encargado de Estados Unidos, que no escucha la versión, le dicen a saber que es Andrés en otro
So
lado.
this is what happens if you don't listen to this. You don't take the time to hear the response of the executive branch. Then you're listening only to those who oppose the president, those who oppose the assembly, that 3% of the people that do not approve of what is going on in El Salvador. So that's what he's saying. And it's the U.S. fault, the fact that they're not even here to hear this side of the coin. So there's condemnation from many countries who have not taken the time or the bother to understand what's truly going on in El Salvador in terms of the Constitution and its democracy. It's obvious that the decision that we made is democratic. It doesn't, the Constitution doesn't say that the president can remove judges. It does say that the assembly can remove judges, though. I'm tied to the Constitution. And the deputies and the assembly are also tied to the Constitution. And now it turns out, so according to what you're saying, many are saying that the president is tied to the Constitution, obligated to the Constitution. The deputies in the assembly are required to follow the Constitution and tied to the Constitution, but the judges are not. Even so, this is an important point that he's saying. He's saying that the saying is this, that, and the hypocrisy that he's pointing out is that he's being required and forced, and of course must follow the Constitution. The assembly, it must follow the Constitution, but through the condemnation and the judges being removed, they're being, how is that not constitutional? Why is that considered unconstitutional? Are they above the Constitution? Are they above this? That's his point. He doesn't understand this. I don't understand this. I think what the assembly did, it's new, it's unique because it was never had this majority. But what the assembly did is to be sure to meet those principles, something that didn't happen before. In the past, the different parties, they divided the attorney general and the prosecutor according to their as tokens of negotiation between them. But this time, it was a by vote by the entire assembly, not the way it was done before as tokens of negotiation. And when I said before that I like El Salvador to be like many of your countries, and I truly said it, I truly meant it. I'm saying it seriously. It's because you built your country. So let us build ours. Because it's very difficult if you tie us to a past that you know has not been good for El Salvador. We're tied to the old to FMLN, the party FMLN, who trained children to go to war and fight and die at war, to kill. They lied to many of us. You tying us to Arena, a party that stole $57 million. And now they're he's saying, I'm sorry, let me get those numbers straight. So he's telling that they're cleaning the house from parties that have killed, looted, and murdered and robbed the country for billions of dollars. One party, FMLN, they sent kids to die. You can find these YouTube videos. You're tying us to Arena. $37 billion stolen from the government, from El Salvador. And now they are all crying, tearing their clothes because our external debt is $20 billion. So in essence, the external debt of El Salvador is $20 billion, okay? In the meantime, The one party stole $37 billion. And that's what the international community wants to tie the current government to work with those parties.
Están escandalizados porque la deuda externa son 20.000 millones. Ellos se robaron 37.000. Pagaríamos la deuda externa y nos quedarán 17.000 millones.
Even if we were to recover those $37 billion, we could pay the national debt and still have $17 billion left.
Entonces,
Then,
si ustedes nos siguen sujetando
if you keep tying us
cosas que nos han mantenido en el
to those things that have kept us in the underdevelopment,
porque tenemos que cambiar.
because we have to change.
Dijo un hombre muy inteligente.
He said, a very wise man said,
La definición de locura era hacer las
the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expect something new.
No íbamos a cambiar con el,
We're not going to change with the same old things that we have,
con los mismos magistrados,
with the same magistrates,
con el mismo.
the same prosecutors. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this. This is a very good point that he's making. This is Contrapunto TV. It's not me. This is where I took all the information from, and I'm going to put a link in there if you want to hear in Spanish. I'm sure they have other good stuff. All right, that concludes this. Please share this to those who don't understand or do not understand what is going on in El Salvador. There's all these news. Everything is negative in El Salvador. I mean, in terms of news, okay? And this is people that have no idea what they're doing, what they're saying. And there's many toxic people in social media, people who want to mask themselves in with the veil of democracy, of human rights, when in fact they don't listen to what the people want. This assembly won overwhelmingly. Let me show you something really quick before I let you go. Here is a graph of the party that won. Nuevas Ideas. Okay, look at all the rest of the parties. El Salvador wanted change. 90% of processed. So let's see. Anyway, my point is this, that this is the change that people want, and El Salvador finds itself in a very unique situation, and they're taking advantage of it. The Salvadoran people, they're thrilled. If you go online, look at surveys, the surveys indicate that it's going on the right path, and El Salvador has a right to govern itself. Thank you.